My friend, welcome to the show. You are
Jake,
in Atlanta. I'm in Minnesota. How are you doing?
thanks for having me. Different weather at this point of the year for sure. But no, I'm glad to be here. Excited about the show and excited what you're doing. So thanks for having me.
Cool. Well, thanks for being here. Just like I do with everybody else, I want to give you the opportunity to share a little bit about you and what you're up to right now. So, Matt, the floor is yours.
Careful. You should probably put a governor on how long you give me the floor. But no, my name is Matt Baxter. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Wedge. Wedge is a video interviewing company. So we're a SaaS tool that we sell to HR companies. It's been a blast. Started about 5 years ago. I live in Michigan. I'm from Ann Arbor, but I live currently in Holland, Michigan, this tiny little tulip town on the coast of Michigan, Lake Michigan, which is awesome. And then I have a side company that started to get some legs called the Hopper Popper. It's a toilet seat foot pedal raiser, which is a fun company and fun in the midst of COVID. And then I also have a podcast myself. It's called the Matt Baxter Show. It's about purpose, passion, and calling. Basically, what does it get you out of bed in the morning? So it's been a lot of fun. Recently started to be on a lot more podcasts. So it's fun to, as a host, to learn from other people who, how they ask questions, how they choose to approach a show. So that's been super, super fun. But long story short, my main business is Wedge, and that's where I'm spending all my time and energy right now. So that's me, man.
Really cool. Well, I'm going to dig into Wedge quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to pause. What is this? What is this toilet seat deal? What, can you say that one more time? I was just trying to picture it in my head and I couldn't put it together.
Yeah, so you walk into a bathroom and there's pee on the seat, and you take your foot and you do the awkward, like put your foot on the lid and you kind of raise it up. You do that whole weird thing. So what we created is
Yeah.
a way for you to walk into the restroom, male or female, and you could push the pedal down and it raises the seat and raises the lid, and you take your foot off and it closes back down. So the whole idea is you remove the need for touching toilets. And then, the further additions, iterations are you can get into one raises the lid, one raises the seat and the lid. There's a lot of different kind of applications for this, but this was an idea about 2 years ago. And then in January, my cousin and I started to launch this, and we brought on a partner named Marty, and it's been a wild ride, man. It's basically the whole idea is it's a side attachment, so you never have to touch a toilet again.
Cool. And that's perfect timing because of COVID and everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, dumb luck with COVID for sure. Dumb luck with COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everybody, I think it would be better to be lucky than good sometimes, but it sounds like it's both.
Exactly.
So to dig into Wedge a little bit, one thing that I've been seeing is a lot of people moving to asynchronous video communications, just back and forth. So Loom, a company like Loom, there's another one called BombBomb. I interviewed Steve Passanelli from there, who's their CMO. And a lot of people really enjoy that because I think the theory is you're able to build a deeper connection with somebody through a video communication as opposed to something like an email. So could you share a little bit more in detail about what exactly your product is used for as it relates to recruiters for companies?
Yeah, for sure. And we actually use BombBomb part of our sales cycle. So that's a great company. And obviously we're in the same market, same space. I think maybe there's a hint of a competition in certain areas, but for the most part not. But basically at the end of the day, where we're trying to help companies is in the pre-screening of the hiring process. So typically you've got resumes, cover letters, you've got the early stage part of the applications, then you're reviewing basically everything on paper. Then you go from there, and then you typically, often, aside from video, you typically say either let's phone screen the person, let's bring them in person, or and now this day and age, let's Zoom. And then let's proceed into depending upon the level of the position, how many different interviews you may do after that, right? So where Wedge fits in is we are right in between the application stage and the phone screen. So we call that the pre-screen. The whole idea is that when you go from paper right into synchronous, that's a very expensive jump. You have to schedule time. So like you and I scheduling this podcast, there's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's a time commitment times hundreds of candidates that you may be screening, huge time commitment. all to find out in the first minute, 2 minute, 5 minutes, whatever it may be, this candidate may not be a good fit. So that's a really, really, really expensive process. Flip the script on the candidate side, all the candidate up until that point has to go off of is how good their resume looks. And that's why companies fall into the trap of, well, we'd rather hire somebody with 5 to 10 years of experience. Well, okay, we get how that falls into place, but at the same time, give a candidate an opportunity to share their story more than just a sheet of paper. And so that's where we feel like the asynchronous tool is a huge value add, and that's why we call it Wedge, right in the wedge of that between the application, resumes, cover letters, and the phone screens, in-person Zoom calls. And, you know, as you alluded to, asynchronous, like BombBomb, for example, that's like a way for me to give you a message via video, record it, fire it off your way. Awesome. You know, you think about TikTok's asynchronous, same exact thing.
Right.
Snapchat's asynchronous, right? So where we just see asynchronous being a huge value add is it's a way for candidates to share about who they are and for companies to have an understanding of who those people are before they actually walk in the door.
So it's used by the candidates then that are applying to the companies?
Set up by the companies. So you've got an HR manager, recruiter, you know, typically that's the demographic we work with. They may say, here are 3 to 5 questions that we want to have the candidates respond to via video. So it's an invitation through typically what's called an applicant tracking system. It's like a CRM for your candidate database, your candidate management. So you fire off an invitation either through that or using Wedge directly. That's more nitty gritty of where it actually lives. But candidate receives an invite via email. They click on the link, they respond to those. Hey, tell me about yourself. What's your, you know, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I hope that's not what's being asked, but those are the 3. For example, you as a candidate would respond to those via video, phone, desktop, laptop, tablet, and then that's all goes back to the company to review.
Cool. Have you heard of the company? I think it's a company. I know the product is called Flipgrid. Have you heard of them and seen what they're doing?
I don't think I have. Obviously, we're taking a look at after this, but I don't think I have.
Yeah, definitely interesting. So they actually use it in our classes. So it kind of combines the features of what you do with Wedge, and then also brings in like filters and different things that you could find on Snapchat. So we use it for introducing ourselves to our classes. With everything being online right now, we aren't really able to interact inside the classroom unless we go into a breakout room and we're doing it like one-on-one or in groups of 3 or 4.
Yep.
So lucky for me, I know a lot of people at the U, so I'm cool with it. But for people that don't really know a lot of people or are new to the university, the main way that we're introduced to people in the class is through this thing called Flipgrid. And basically we go into U of M's website, and then it brings us to Flipgrid, and you can record like an introductory video to yourself based off of the prompt from the teacher. And then you can overlay like different frames and images and different filters and stuff to it. So it's kind of interesting. I would definitely take a look at it. You might be able to integrate some of those things in your process as well, if companies would be interested in getting a taste of people's personality.
Yeah, for sure. That's something we've thought about the growing opportunities to expand this is like one of them, for example, we're helping a couple VCs on their like submit your pitch deck, also submit a 30-second, minute long, 2-minute long. Here are 2 questions or 3 questions or 5 questions we want you to answer a part of your pitch deck, right? Or we have same thing with like a pitch contest. It's a lot of like, here's your elevator pitch, but also here's 3 questions that we're always going to ask, you know, what's your competitive advantage? You know, whatever people ask standard. That's like same exact thing as an application, just titled differently, right? So that's a fun one.
Cool. And it's almost like an add-on or a fill-in for a resume or a cover letter as well.
That's exactly right. Yep, that's exactly right.
Really cool. So I want to dig into like the theory behind asynchronous a little bit. I don't know how psychology, like, do you dig into the psychology of it at all, or do you just know that it works and roll with it?
No, I mean, because
I'd love to dig into psychology a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I enjoy the psychology of it. I would not I wouldn't say that when this idea first came to be, I was understanding of the implications of what asynchronous actually meant. And quite frankly, I didn't even know asynchronous was a word. But it's where my mind kind of, I would say go like behavioral economics, game theory, a lot of like the human reactions to things, not just asynchronous in general, is kind of where my mind goes. And so it's something I spend a lot of time thinking about. So yeah, fire away.
World in general then. Right now, there's a lot of different companies that are coming to the market. As I mentioned, Loom and BombBomb, and then well, Wedge, of course. And I'd love to hear your take on where you think asynchronous video is and where you think it is going to be. So I had a conversation with Chris Joyce. He's the CEO of Gusher a few weeks ago, and he exclusively uses asynchronous video communications just because he thinks like that is what the future is going to be because of the social interaction with people. So I'd love to hear your take on where you think it's going to be and what the world will look like 15 years from now in terms of communication.
Yeah, I mean, I think you think how phone calls have evolved to be FaceTime and Zoom. So even pre-COVID, you know, when you were having like an intimate call with one of your friends or one of, you know, a family member or whatever, you see the value of what you get from FaceTime. So like
Right.
one thing that obviously FaceTime is synchronous, but one thing that you get is like you actually get, for the most part, pretty focused conversations. If I'm on a call, I'm walking around, I'm doing other things. Sometimes I thrive that way. I would invest more money than I even have for somebody who can figure out the ability to walk and talk while appropriately doing Zoom, because that's all I wish to do. That's really the reason why I don't personally do a ton of Zoom calls over video. It's just because I want to walk and talk. I actually think video works way better. You're both paying attention. You know when somebody's not paying attention. You can see mannerisms. You can see reactions. So take that, amplify that, and remove the need for the two of us to be on the call at the same time. You have developed such a unique form of communication between two people. It's one of the reasons why TikTok blew up. It's because you can take as many takes as you want to take. You can create awesome content. You can, you know, show off your dance moves. You can do any different. That's why Snapchat works great, is because you can visualize and record things that you could never put into words, right? So I would take the same thing with like communication between individuals. And so, you know, for us, we see a huge, immense amount of value in companies having an insight into who somebody is via asynchronous, candidates having insight to be able to share their story more than just a resume and a cover letter. But then you take that same logic and you expand that even further. So like we've been approached about, you know, stepping into the telehealth communication platform. So a patient and doctor can communicate by asynchronous video. We've been talking about potentially asynchronous in the college application and the grad school application market as well too. So you think about, hey, as a student, you can expand further about who you are than maybe just your 3 bullet points of here's my SAT, my ACT, and my GPA, and how much volunteer work I did, or how many different, you know, 17 different sports I was a varsity athlete in, right? That's like what people are going off of, which is very limiting. And I think we've narrowed our scope of understanding who people are until you introduce something like video. So then, okay, let's think, why can't we just Zoom all the time for everything? You get scheduling, you get literally you have to have us at the same time watching, reviewing each other on the same call. Whereas with asynchronous video, in whatever capacity, you're introducing the ability that I can watch whatever I want on my own time, and you can record whatever you want on your own time, and I can respond back whatever I want on my own time. So you've eliminated so much of the scheduling headaches, so much of like the like yeah, anyway, so I can rant on that for hours, but to me, I think it's just the ability that you remove scheduling, you get the amazing human interactions of people being on video, you get, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? I mean,
Right.
what's a video worth?
A million words, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
You 10x it. I don't know.
I think that's what we're going to try to quantify. I mean, that's what we're trying to do in the video space, or sorry, that's what we're trying to do in the recruiting space. So, exactly, a video is so much more effective supplementing. I'm not trying to say we're getting rid of resumes, although at some point I hope to, but like we're not trying to fully get
Me
rid of
too.
resumes.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody hates resumes, and
I
yet
think
we're
it's stupid.
hiring.
But
Yet we're
anyways,
hiring off of resumes that nobody likes.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, you're getting me fired up.
Well, that's good.
It's not even
what I'm here for.
It's awesome.
That's what I'm here for. I think there would be a huge opportunity for college applications. One thing you mentioned was about quantifying what a asynchronous video is worth. So I don't know, like, feel free to just bounce around this question if you don't want to answer it, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your sales process and what you do to share or show ROI or cost saving for asynchronous video. What's the value proposition? Like, why would they do this as opposed to just going with the traditional way of doing it and do their screening calls and that?
Yep. So let's take the easiest way to quantify that. So let's say your HR, let's say your middle management HR person makes $70K a year. Okay. So let's say roughly they're billing the organization $35 an hour. Well, just rough math.
Yep.
So let's say they've got 100 applicants, and let's say they took, I don't know, let's say they took a total of 2 hours to review 100 different resumes. Okay. You got $70 into the process. Then let's say out of those 100 candidates, they only have so many, let's say they have to fill the position in, let's say 60 days. So all of a sudden you've got to take 100 and then you got to determine who's worth phone screening, right? So I don't know, let's say you're going to jump into phone screen, you're going to phone screen 20 of them. And let's say even with Calendly and blah, 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 it takes 10 hours to schedule. So you've got literally 10 hours to schedule 20 different people. So you've got, $350 you just spent in scheduling alone. And then you've got 20 hours. Let's say each call takes an hour, and let's assume nobody cancels, and let's assume nobody doesn't no show, which is not safe to assume. All of a sudden you got 20 hours.
Safe to assume. I rescheduled this call like 4 times.
No, exactly. That's my point. That is like a major red flag if somebody assumes that. It's, it happens all the time, but let's give everybody the benefit of the doubt. You've got, another 20 hours, so another $700 you spend. So this one role for 100 different candidates filtering down just to figure out who's worth bringing in like the in-person, or like bringing in a director, or bringing in a CEO or CFO or whoever the next role. You've already spent $1,500, $1,200 on it. So why don't we say, let's take that first process, and let's say we could take out of those 100 candidates, we can actually have you have a video on every single one and review all 100. I'm not saying you need to, but review all 100 in less time in a 3 to 5 minute video than you could the full 20. You've already saved yourself money, not to mention with asynchronous. And here's what's, I think, the biggest value add, but a little difficult to quantify, is the ability to collaborate. I can take that video, and if you're my CEO and I'm the HR director, Jake, I can send this video to you. You can review it, watch it. We're watching the same thing, whereas before, all you were reviewing was my notes on these 20 people.
Yeah, interesting.
And so then you get into the psychology of what kind of mood was I in? Did I just have lunch? Was I pissed off? Had I just had a terrible call? Was I biased because somebody was just coming off angry on a recruiting call with me? Whatever it may be, my notes are so biased to the mood that I'm in. And then all of a sudden to take that same exact thing and basically be able to present the same video I'm watching and share it with my CEO or my CFO or my manager or whatever it is. We're watching the same thing and then choosing to interview that person. I mean, in like 5 hours of phone screening a month, we can justify why Wedge is a value add. 10 times that.
Right. And I think the levels of complexity just increase as you add more recruiters to the team, and there's just more risk involved. So that makes 100% sense to me. We've got 4 minutes left. I want to respect your time here. The last question that I have, I'm going to try to ask this for all my guests. Sometimes I forget because I'm a forgetful person sometimes.
It happens.
But I want to ask you about white space and marketing. So what is one thing or one strategy that you have implemented or you've seen implemented that was highly effective and hasn't either been used or recognized by people in the market?
Yeah, so I would say first thing you got to ask yourself is, are you a feature or are you a platform? So we are not the entire hiring solution. We play one part. So in the grand scheme of the hiring solution, we are a feature. So what is the platform? The platform for us is the applicant tracking system. So we quickly learned, hey, companies, one of the reasons why they may not be adopting Wedge super well is not because the product doesn't work great, is because they have to go from using applicant tracking system, then try to use Wedge, and then come back to that applicant tracking system. That's like you got to remember logins, you got to remember passwords, you got to bump it back and forth between different systems. Where we came in and quite frankly, we had a couple of partners approaches is we integrated our solution so that it's a seamless part of the applicant tracking system so that a company never has to bump back around. We became a feature, a part of the broader platform and figured out who that was. And those happened to be companies that have tons of our target customers that helped us scale like crazy. So we actually took kind of the technical partnership side of things and turned that into a marketing lever that we can pull like crazy.
Wonderful. Thank you, my good sir.
Dumb luck,
Thank
man.
you,
Dumb
my
luck.
good sir.
Thank you for having me, man. This has been great.
It was more smart luck. It was more smart luck than dumb luck.
We tripped into it, that's
I'll
for
call
sure.
it smart luck.
It's awesome.
Well, thank you, Matt. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you sitting down with me. Enjoy the rest of your time down in Atlanta with your sister. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you so much. Take care, Jake. Thanks again for having me.
Yep, take care.